It's a beautiful day, no matter where you are, because you are alive. Welcome to today's YouTube session here with me, Paul Lawrence Van. And of course, our host, Leadership is Influence. And it's very important to me that you become a better leader, as well as it ultimately becoming a leader of influence. And the reason why it's so important is because we all have a life to lead. So everyone is a leader, you and I. So thanks for being on today's session. I'm going to talk about something that's very important to us all, and that is when it comes to leadership, it's something that we all are part of, even if we don't have the title of leader itself, such as a CEO or president or executive vice president, but rather in your job title or as a manager, you still have a leadership function. And the more and more we learn about this, the better and better you're going to be over time. It doesn't happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight for me either, but it's a path in which you can follow. And of course, with everyone involved with leadership, there is a journey. There is a starting point, there's the present, and of course, there's the projection for the future. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, just a bit, for those of you who have not learned of me as of yet. But I am a leadership expert, leadership development workshop facilitator, and also author of a leadership book, Leadership is Influencing. And I also have courses, digital courses that I offer to my clients as well. And I have over 30 years of leadership expertise, knowledge, and experience. And of course, the abilities, having supervised people in my 20 years in the Air Force. I served 12 consecutive years in the Pentagon in various leadership positions, in addition to 1 year on Capitol Hill working for a member of Congress. And so that's enough about me, right? Right. So I want to talk today about intentional leadership. And the reason why I want to talk about it, because there was a recent gathering of leaders, and one of the things that they talked about were the top challenges for 2023. And these top challenges was everything from the new hybrid workplace or remote workers to the layoffs or the great resignation. So there were a lot of things coming into being, but one of the most important of them all was not about the strategic leadership of someone with the title and designated leader, but more so, what are their people skills? In other words, today is much more important to understand how the employee thinks, how the subordinate thinks. And the reason why this is important is because it has a direct impact on the business performance of an organization or company. And what I mean by this is that the leader really needs to know what the employee is thinking, so that if there's some behavior modification in terms of how do you influence people to do what you need them to do, because it's very important to understand that the leader actually doesn't do the work, but their influence should be such that employees are willing to do what's asked of them, to follow that vision and the mission and the objectives of the company. And so they're looking for ways in terms of, how do I have the greatest impact on the employees who are in the workplace, those who come in 2 or 3 times a week into the office, the physical office, the brick and mortar office, and those who also spend maybe 2 days from a virtual standpoint on Zoom or StreamYard or Google Meetings, whatever it happens to be. And so what's important is, how do I have the greatest impact? And it's going to be through intentional influence and intentional leadership. In other words, you want to be able, in a leadership position, you want to be able to have an influence on people to help them to understand what it takes to accomplish the goals and the vision of the organization. Now, at this point, are you with me? I take that as a yes. And I'll give an example of what one of the studies stated. It said someone who was in the airline industry. And so they came up with this concept of, how do we provide more efficiency with our flights, with each flight that goes out. And so someone came up with the concept, well, we would really request that people, before the flight takes off, that they go to the restroom, they go to the bathroom, whatever, inside the airport or on the plane. And the reason why is because they could come up with, let's say, a fully loaded plane, and they would have less of a weight on aircraft if more people did go to the bathroom. And as a result, it would give back efficiency. So they talked about, well, maybe we'll give a bonus to people who do go to the bathroom. And so it's kind of an out of the box concept, but actually it could work. Because when you look at the full weight, if you have the maximum payload weight of an aircraft, and you have people on it as a carrier aircraft, a passenger aircraft, the less weight that a person has, the lighter that plane will be. And that's just one example. And so when we look at finding ways to get people to agreement, for example, if we have a organization, let's say this organization happens to be at UPS or a carrier, Amazon, whatever it may be. And you would have people to actually go condition, go get in better shape, go through a weight loss program, go through a muscle development program. And so you're going to have healthier employees, and they're going to be able to recoup faster through a very intense period. For example, when I was working at UPS, I had to load trucks when I first started. And I literally had to go to the gym. I started running more. I'd run a mile or 2 miles. I'd do some sprint work. I would lift weights. And I did that for more endurance. Besides, I was a college student and I needed all the extra energy I could get. Thinking takes away a lot of energy. But when I applied that and getting that work-life balance, not only between my academics, but also as an employee, part-time employee with UPS, that paid dividends. And so one would encourage, the supervisor would encourage, hey, you guys go work out at the gym. We're going to give you some incentives, some bonuses in order to do this, as an example. And overall, the performance is going to be better because you're going to have employees who are not as fatigued, who are not as burnt out. You have employees who are very refreshed and can't wait to go, can't get ready to go. So when we start looking at that and we look at the behavior that a leader is trying to get out of an employee, and again, the leader, he has to be able to influence his employees. And so now we're not so much looking at the leadership with strategic objectives, but a leadership with intentional perspective, influence. And the reason why is because only then, if the employees are able to make these behavioral changes, are they able to give you more within the organization. And so it's very important. And this is the big thing that has taken place in 2023. Leaders with the title better understanding their employees. And the same thing goes for a manager or supervisor in their leadership position. You have to be able to intentionally influence people to get them to go in the direction that the organization is trying to go in. And even in the military, when I served 20 years in the military at the Pentagon, it wasn't an issue of that a leader would demand anything out of you, because they knew if you were at the Pentagon and you were in your title, not as the leader, ultimate leader, but they already knew that you could perform the work. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there in the first place. But what they wanted was more from you and more from me, which I think is a great expectation to have, because we should expect people that work for us to do their very best. And again, I always talk about working and operating from the level of excellence, because when you operate from that level, there's not going to be a lot of drop off in performance. Whether we're getting reports out, whether we're trying to analyze a contractor, whether we're looking at agreements between foreign military sales, as an example, or if we're looking at working with members of Congress trying to get more legislation for our Army soldiers, for our Air Force airmen, for our Navy seamen, and then, of course, from our Marines and our Coast Guard and our Merchant Marines. So we have just a plethora of different organizations in which we serve, but we have people who are in my job, my role in the Pentagon for national defense. You have to be operating at peak performance as best you can. And yes, there are going to be some people who are not going to perform at that level, but typically they don't retire from the military and they have a nice career, but they have experience that they picked up, but they likely will transition out to private industry or start their own business or become a contractor. So today, what I really wanted you to understand is that it's less about the leadership strategy. So the leaders still have leadership strategy, but it's not as important as understanding your people, your employees, your subordinates. That's most important in terms of how do they think. And that brings up another topic where I had my first experience trying to understand how do people think. I was in the Air Force for roughly 8 years. I was a captain at the time, and I really had this itch that I wanted scratched. And the itch I wanted scratched was to work for a Fortune 500 corporation. And so I separated from the Air Force, and I was recruited by 20 different companies. And I interviewed with my final two, which was Michelin Tire and Mobil Oil. And I selected Mobil Oil. And the reason why I selected them is because it put me really into that financial analyst role, more so than with Michelin Tire, where I would be in the accounting office. Even though I had worked in the accounting office before, I really preferred financial analysis because it gave you a broader brush, if you will, in terms of doing the job. Now, one of the things I looked at when I had this separation, it was from the standpoint of never thinking I would go back into the military. And lo and behold, 2 years later, I received a call from the Pentagon. Hey, Paul, I understand that you want your join the inactive reserve. Yes, sir. And this colonel called me from the Pentagon. And he said, well, we would like to bring you back to back in the Air Force. And I said, well, would I be assigned? He said, at the Pentagon. I was like, really? He said, yeah, because it's somewhere I always wanted to have a tour of duty at. And sure enough, everything went through the military. I had to go and get a physical exam. The physical exam was in 3 weeks. Of course, I was in Southeast Texas, close to Louisiana. I was working over in New Orleans periodically, and I was eating all the good Cajun food, French food, and my goodness, I gained 33 pounds. It's funny now, but at the time I was like, okay, now I need to pass this physical. So in the first day, I ran a mile, and then I lifted weights. The second day, I ran 2 miles, and then I went to aerobics class. The third day, I did hot and water treatment and 3 miles, on and on until I was able to run 10 miles around a track. And still doing my exercise, and I lost 33 pounds in 3 weeks. Now, I was determined, and sure enough, I passed the physical exam, and it took 6 months for me to go back physically back into the Air Force because someone was sitting on the paperwork. And so bureaucracy set in on me. And I took a part-time job at GTE Telecommunications, and I sold cell phones and cell phone service. And mine was a little different because I ended up selling phones and providing service to members of the then Washington Redskins and then the Washington Bullets, who are now the Washington Wizards and now the Washington Commanders. And so mine was different. So I'm hanging out with these professional athletes, meeting the owners of the team, going to restaurants and nightclubs the average person can't get into unless you're a celebrity. So I was driving these guys around just having a good time. And the next thing you know, I received a letter, you're to report for duty in June. And sure enough, I reported for duty. And to make a long story short, what I'm saying is in your life, you're going to be on a leadership journey. And that 2 years with Mobil Oil Company was a 2-year journey because I learned things that my peers in the Air Force didn't learn. And so it gave me actually an advantage for having been out 2 years. And so I actually didn't miss anything. I came back in and I obtained my second master's degree compliments of the Air Force. And then I was, of course, working at the Pentagon with high-level executives, and then ultimately going on to Capitol Hill to work for a member of Congress in the U.S. House of Representatives. So leadership was everywhere. And just like I want to still impress upon you, you may not think that you're a leader because you don't have a title, but you are a leader because you have a life to lead every single day of your life. And so leaders lead. That's what you do. And never think because someone has a title like president or CEO or executive vice president, this, that, or the other, they rely on you for the information that they need. And that's why intentional influence as a leader is so very important. Leadership is to count on you to provide them with what they need. And it behooves you to learn as much as you can about your particular area, your title, whatever your job title has to be, because what it is today is not what it will be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, whether it's with the same company or not. You will become better and better on your leadership journey. And so I have posted in here my website. It's posted directly beside my name, and you can learn more about me. Simply go to https://paullawrencevan.com, and there you will see all of the speeches that I provide. I'm a keynote speaker, and I'm a breakout section speaker as well, in addition to leadership development. But go there, take a look at it. And I do speak on topics of leadership. And I want you to become an excellent leader, a good leader, and then ultimately a leader of influence, which means you are an excellent leader. And I want you to encourage your family, friends, and colleagues to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Paul Lawrence Van, Leadership is Influence. And I must say, I'm going to celebrate with you a little bit right now. And I just started this YouTube channel. I have over 1,000 subscribers now, and I'm halfway with over 4,000 hours of viewership. It won't be long. I think at about mid-May, I'll probably have 4,000 views. And at that point, then I can put more ads out there and everything else. But you're on the cutting edge, and I really owe my thanks to you, and I'm going to salute you right now for supporting me by listening and viewing my YouTube channel. And this is going to conclude today's session. I'll have more coming up as the time goes on. My time is up, and I thank you for yours. And I would not do this without you, because I will tell you the God honest truth. I want you to be a good leader, and ultimately a leader of influence. And the way to do it is to keep watching this. And I encourage you to go to my website, www.paullawrencevan.com, and learn about my speeches. And that will get you on your way in terms of understanding what I'm all about. So have a great day. And I thank you so much for your time. And I will see you on the very next episode of Leadership is Influence. Enjoy your day. Take good care, and goodbye.